It was a very busy day for the Kansas City Chiefs as a couple of players sustained injuries, a couple of players came back from injury, and also 2 draft picks really stood out in today's practice, and much more. Welcome in, guys. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for another video here on the Chiefs Zone YouTube channel. If you guys are new to this YouTube channel, if this is your first time watching my video, please stick around through the entire duration of this video. And if you like this video, if you like what you see on here, check out my other stuff. And if you like what you see on there as well, please consider subscribing and let a friend know about the Chiefs Zone YouTube channel. And also make sure all of you guys are subscribed and turn on the bell notification, because once we do that, you will get notified whenever we go live for a podcast, including one later tonight and also on Thursday to recap Chiefs training camp when that concludes on Thursday. And also, do not forget, make sure you're following me on all of my other social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, anywhere on social media. If you're on there, we're very likely on there as well. So make sure you guys are following me on there and check out all of the content that we've got regarding the Kansas City Chiefs and anything else that comes out with the NFL sports and maybe some non-sports sometimes. We like to have fun with that as well. Now, before we get into football here, and I normally don't do this, but I kind of want to share today. So, silly me, I woke up late. I overslept a bit. Thankfully, still got up early enough to get up and eventually leave my house on time, but had to rapidly do things in the morning. So, every morning, I check the weather radar. And you guys know how weather radars are, weather reports, all these things. They're not always accurate. So, I always like to check the radar just to see how things are going to go. Did not check it. Had no idea if it was going to rain or what was going to happen today. So I went into St. Joe blindly, not knowing what the weather was going to be like. Now I show up and I got there right at 7 a.m. and the parking lot was empty. I was really close to the front of the line. And listen, a lot of people who arrive early, those are the autograph seekers. Listen, if I was an autograph seeker, I could have gotten myself a damn good spot to try to get Patrick Mahomes, but that's not what I'm there for. Nonetheless, they actually held off opening doors about 20 minutes later than they usually do. And I checked the weather radar while I'm in line, and I realized, oh boy, there's a storm coming in from Omaha. Now, crazy enough, the weather gods and the football gods, they joined forces and they said, no, we are not canceling Chiefs practice today. It is staying outdoors. We ain't moving it indoors. Look at this weather radar. It's actually kind of fascinating. You see this front coming in, but it avoids St. Joe long enough to keep the 2 hours for the Chiefs to be outside for practice. Now, the Chiefs have had a couple of practices where they started indoors, but then they came back outdoors to finish practice and eventually let fans in. So, kind of a weird little deal here. I don't want to call myself a weather expert, or at least an expert on reading radars, but had I read this morning, I probably would have foregoed making the 1.5 hour drive to St. Joe, because it looked like it was going to take over right at the start of practice and be that way all the way through. Thankfully, that was not the case. The rain started, and a couple of minutes after, that's when practice concluded. So it all worked out really well. But enough of that. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into the good stuff here with football. Now, we're going to start with a little bit of bad news here, as Josh Simmons did not practice today. You see him here working in the rehab field with some other guys. You can see them in the background. Chu Godric, Omar Norman Lott is there, a couple other guys as well. He did not practice due to a back injury. Apparently, it is very minor, so it's nothing too serious. I will say, when I first saw this, and we did not know what the injury was at the time, I had a little bit of a concern here because Simmons has had a couple of injuries each of the last 2 years. Last year as a rookie, and also the year before when he was at Ohio State with that torn ACL. So there's always that concern with Josh Simmons because he's missed some games because of injuries. But it sounds like it's not going to be anything too serious and should be back at practice soon. Now, the offensive line shift was interesting. Jalen Moore moved back to left tackle, a position he's very familiar with, where he was a backup left tackle for Trent Williams in San Francisco. Khalil Benson continued at right tackle, and then Mike Caliendo filled in at right guard while Trey Smith continues to work his way back due to a sore hip. Now, a couple of guys who came back to practice for the first time today in pads. Drew Tranquil, who missed a few practices, he came back today. L'Jarius Sneed, who has not been in pads all training camp, he came back today and was in pads. Both were limited today. That's pretty normal protocol for guys that are coming back to practice for the first time since sustaining an injury. But nonetheless, those guys did participate in practice today, so they seem like they're trending upwards to possibly being available in full for that September 14th Broncos game, which is a little under a month now. Unfortunately, a couple of injuries that occurred today. One is Ashton Gelati, who just got back into practice for the Chiefs. It's unclear exactly what's going on, but he was seen favoring his lower right leg. Again, we don't know the specifics of this, but the Chiefs did say that it's a foot injury. They're not giving any details beyond that. Now, this one's a little concerning because it involves Tyquan Thornton, who is your deep threat wide receiver on the team, who was, by the way, your most effective wide receiver last year. He left on the front of a cart due to a hamstring injury, and we don't know the severity of this, but he looked like he was okay. I mean, it wasn't in serious pain or any of that. So we don't know exactly, but we should find out tomorrow morning if he's going to be in pads making his way down the hill. And hopefully we've got some good news to share there. So let's get into the actual football. And I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Chiefs had not one, but two draft picks that really stood out today. Now, yesterday, when we started the football conversation, we start off with Mansoor Delane, who practiced yesterday for the first time in pads and without the yellow non-contact jersey, and had a pretty good day yesterday. Today, Mansoor Delane stood out again. When it came to the one-on-one drills, the team drills, Mansoor Delane had his hand in so many areas. He was probably the busiest defensive player for Kansas City in practice today. Now you see him here against Tyquan Thornton. Of course, I mentioned earlier, Thornton is the deep receiving threat for Kansas City and absolutely denied here by Mansoor Delane. Now, is this defensive pass interference? I've seen some debate about this. And by the way, even yesterday, with some of the footage out there from the media and whatnot, a lot of people feel like Mansoor Delane is guarding some receivers maybe a little too close to where, flags are going to be thrown. This is going to be interesting. And look, he's a rookie. He's going to learn. He's going to commit mistakes here. So this is someone that's going to have to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and grow. And I trust that he absolutely will. So listen, yeah, and by the way, it's not the only clip you'll see of Tyquan Thornton on this video. We got a couple more to show you. He is all over receivers. That can be a good thing, but you got to be very careful with that because defensive penalties are the worst. It doesn't matter if it's a 5-yard penalty, 15-yard penalty, whatever it is, they almost all of them result in an automatic first down. An offensive penalty, okay, yeah, you get backed up 5-10 yards, but you get to redo that down. Defensive penalties can be backbreakers sometimes for a drive and maybe even a game. So this is something that he's just going to have to learn and adjust as he goes on in his rookie campaign. Now, here's a bad rep for Mansoor Delane. He did not have many of those today, just to be clear, but I still want to show this. And this is Andrew Armstrong, who's been working his tail off throughout all of training camp. Does a great job of creating separation and also putting both feet down here, getting that toe on that other leg there, that back foot there, and just making sure he secures the catch there. So a pretty good job there by Andrew Armstrong against a great defensive back in Mansoor Delane. And here we are during team drills, a pass breakup against Rashee Rice. Eric Bieniemy got on Rashee Rice a little bit after this play here, telling him he's got to make that play there. So it's one of those things that, with Delane, he's got a lot to learn, but man, he looks like a very aggressive cornerback. And again, that's a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing as well. And that's just something, he'll figure out as time goes on. I think the thing that he has to his advantage, not only is he a very talented football player, a good defensive back, but he's also surrounded by the right coaches. He's got one of the best secondary coaches in all of football and Dave Merritt, and also one of the best defensive-minded guys of all time in Steve Spagnuolo. So hopefully, those guys can work with him on all of that as time goes on his rookie campaign. Now, I want to stick with the quarterbacks here. Noel Williams had a really good day as well. Here's a pass that he swatted away that was intended for Xavier Worthy. Now, again, he's closely guarding Worthy here. This is a red zone drill here. And Williams does a really good job of keeping this completion from happening. I just see a little different. I sense something different with the quarterback room. It looks very different this year. In training camp, of course. Now, we'll see how they look in regular season games, but man, Mansoor, Delane, and Noel Williams, two guys who were very successful in college. You had Noel Williams in his last year in college, who led the league in interceptions and was drafted last year by Kansas City because of his success as a defensive back while at Cal. I know, not the most competitive place for college football, but still, nonetheless, hey, he intercepted Cam Ward, who was the number 1 overall pick the same year. And then for Mansoor Delane, this is someone who did not allow a touchdown all of last season. Allowed very few receptions, in fact. So this duo is going to be interesting. And with L'Jarius Sneed coming back, Jaden Kennedy, who also has some potential as well, Kidder Kohu, who's had some good moments as a nickel cornerback in the past, Alohi Gilman, who's done some good things as a safety, Jaden Hicks, he looks like he's got a promising start to what will be his 3rd year with the Chiefs. And in the NFL, is he someone who can step up and make that big leap in year 3? You got a lot of young guys in the secondary, which is exactly the case for Kansas City 4 years ago when they had McDuffie, Brian Cook, Jalen Watson, so many guys. Rashad Fenton was their most experienced guy. They ended up trading him that same year. L'Jarius Sneed was then your most experienced cornerback. And they found a way to win a Super Bowl, and that secondary did great, was despite having so many rookies that year. So you don't have as many rookies now, but there's a lot of turnover at this position group. So I'm curious to see how it all goes, and hopefully this is a secondary with the young guys, Delane and Williams specifically, guys who are ready for the next step, because trading Trent McDuffie, losing Jalen Watson, losing Josh Williams, Nazeeh Johnson, who's moved on, you're going to have a lot of new cornerbacks this year. And Williams, going into year 2, kind of feels like a rookie year for him because he didn't play a whole lot last year. But in the limited snaps we got from him last year, up until, the last 3 games when they shelved Trent McDuffie and did so many other things with their roster once they were eliminated from playoff contention, we saw some great things from Noel Williams. And then he played more in those last 3 games, and we didn't really see Noel Williams allow those big plays. I know he's allowed some of that in practice this year in training camp, and you're going to see that very soon in one of the clips I have. But I like the job that Noel Williams has done. I really do. I think this guy's ready to be a starting cornerback, and he's going to be asked to do a lot in this Chiefs defense. So I'm excited to see how that all goes with Williams and Delane this season. All right. I think this is going to be everyone's favorite part of this video. This is the content all of Chiefs Kingdom wants, Cyrus Allen content. Here's a touchdown pass during 7-on-7s from Patrick Mahomes to Cyrus Allen. And yes, we just discussed Noel Williams getting beat on this play here. Just a great job by Cyrus Allen. Here's another one. I got fooled by the pump fake here from Mahomes, but he gets it to Allen quickly. Defenders do a good job of moving fast, closing in on him. And then here's a one-on-one rep. I zoomed in on this, but it's 7-on-7s where Justin Fields gets this to Cyrus Allen. Good leaping ability against Melvin Smith Jr. here. And, we continue to see Cyrus Allen get more involved. They continue to throw the ball at his direction. This is a guy who's going to be very busy this season for sure. Now, this next clip, watch very carefully. Here's Patrick Mahomes getting chased by Chris Jones. Mahomes rolls out to his right, wants a receiver, doesn't get it, gotta wait a second. There's Rashee Rice right there in the end zone for a score, high-fiving Cyrus Allen. And let's watch this one more time, and I'm going to slow-mo this. Look who Patrick Mahomes is trying to throw to. He is trying to get this to Cyrus Allen here. Now, you can't see it, but Alohi Gilman is in that area, so Mahomes can't throw it there. Otherwise, it'll be, at best, force for an incompletion, or it's going to be picked off here. And so Mahomes has to extend the play a little bit. A good job by FAU in the background here, just kind of getting ready for anything and everything possible that Mahomes might do. But Mahomes does a good job of finding Rashee Rice here. And I think this is something I've talked about for a while. I know, offensively speaking, this Chiefs team, and specifically at wide receiver, this is not a top 10, top 15, not even a top 20 wide receiver room. This wide receiver room does have potential, but they've got to prove it. Rashee Rice could be a top 10 receiver. We've seen big flashes from Rice, but we've never seen it consistently. Same with Tyquan Thornton, same with Xavier Worthy. And with these three guys, and hopefully Tyquan Thornton's hamstring is nothing serious, but with these three guys as your primary receivers, they will help one another. And they'll also help Travis Kelce. And by the way, don't forget, you got a good run game as well in Kenneth Walker. And that's going to open up a lot of things with the passing game. Which, by the way, leads me to my next clip here that I really want to show. Look at this. Play action, quick rollout to the right, and then a quick screen pass throw to K9. Got a couple of blockers, 4 to be exact here, already there. Listen, I like it. Cool, nifty play call by Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. I mean, I like the play design. I like all of it. These are the simple things, the creativity we just did not see last year, and now we're getting it with this Chiefs team, and that's, kind of a pleasant surprise. It feels weird to see the Chiefs under center using the play action, things that actually throw off defenses, even the best defenses. It's just something Kansas City did not do last year, which is crazy because Matt Nagy, not that, a lot of you guys care about this too much, but in Giants practice, people have noted that, hey, they're under center. They're using play action. Probably because John Harbaugh told Nagy, hey, look, you better implement this in the offense if you want to get hired and you want to work here. So I'm sure Nagy, he's trying to learn from his past mistakes and trying to do a better job. And listen, my opinion, the Giants do have serious talent there, but we'll see how that goes. For Kansas City, like I said, you've got a lot of players here to work with. There are a lot of talented offensive players, and you see some of them on your screen right here. And there's more. I just think Kansas City has way too much potential. And look, even a guy like Brashard Smith, who I don't know what his workload will look like, but I have a hard time believing he's going to get left out. They're going to find ways to utilize him and his breakaway speed in games this year. The Chiefs have done a good job of doing that with players in the past, even in the second tenure of Matt Nagy in Kansas City. They found ways to get a lot of different guys involved. Remember DeAnthony Thomas, who I want to say was a 4th-round pick coming out of Oregon, but didn't end up having the biggest career. But with his speed, the Chiefs found ways to do some different things with him, especially when Patrick Mahomes got here. They found ways to get him more involved. And I remember Mahomes noting that in one of the interviews he did very early on in his career that, hey, DeAnthony Thomas is a guy we also really like, and he's got a lot of talent, a lot of speed that bodes well in Andy Reid's offensive system, and we like using him. So Brashard Smith kind of has the DeAnthony Thomas similarities where, he's a former receiver, converted to running back, also has the ability to be a returner as well. We'll see if Brashard Smith gets used in that area, but these are things that Kansas City has to use to their advantage. So much talent. And with the hope that you have a better coaching staff with Eric Bieniemy, who spoke today for the first time since returning from his emergency with his family. Bieniemy mentioned, this offense still has a long ways to go. They're not where they want to be. But he also noted that these last couple of practices have been very good for the offense. And I don't disagree. And I feel like ever since Eric Bieniemy got back, the offense has looked more sharp. They haven't been perfect. No offense ever looks perfect in practice. But the offense just looks more in sync since Bieniemy got here. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So hopefully that continues to carry over in these preseason games. I don't know how much we're going to see any of the starters in Saturday's game, but also once the games start for real in September, because like I said, this wide receiver room is too talented. The offense in general, I think you have a lot of talent with those football players. And if it doesn't go as planned. I just think this would be a massive disappointment and a wasted season for these guys. So I'm excited to see what it all goes. Let me just add this real quickly, because Rice, Worthy, and Thornton, they've all dealt with injuries of some sort, missing some kind of practice. And again, we'll see how serious Thornton's injury is with the hamstring. But who are the wide receivers going to be? My guess is you're going to have 7 wide receivers. Rice, Worthy, Thornton, Royals, and Allen. I think you're clear 5 guys. Number 6, I'd like to think it's Andrew Armstrong, who I showed you earlier. A guy who's just been working his tail off all training camp. Saw it a little bit in that game as well with a couple of really nice blocks. You know, pushing down those Rams cornerbacks, putting them to sleep. But who's number 7 going to be? Is it going to be Nico Remigio, who the Chiefs really like? And when I say the Chiefs, I'm talking Andy Reid, I'm talking Dave Tobe, guys who heavily praised him publicly in the past. As your special teams guy, I'm not particularly a fan of Remigio on special teams. Yes, he had a couple of really big returns in the playoffs a couple years back, but that was back then. I'm just not big on Remigio personally. Jimmy Holiday, Jason Brownlee, guys who have some familiarity and have had some flashes in practice. Jeff Caldwell, who the Chiefs got after the draft this year. Someone who's very tall and possesses great speed. One of the fastest wide receivers at the scouting combine this year. But I think there's a lot of questions about his potential. Is he that number 7 guy? You have Xavier Lloyd, Jacob DeJesus, who's small but very fast. Omari Evans, who's had some flashes. Here's a wild card name I'm going to throw out there. What about Juju Smith-Schuster, who just got let go by the Giants as a corresponding move? I know he's also been dealing with a knee injury, so that's not the greatest alternative, but he is familiar with the system. And if he's your number 7 receiver and you want to utilize guys like Thornton, Royals, Brashard Smith for the return game, I think that'll work out just fine. Because I think you can use other guys for the return game and let Juju be part of your offense as a number 7 receiver. I have no obligations about that. I know not everyone will agree with that, and I understand. But for Juju to be, the bottom guy on your receiving depth chart, I would take that. I'm completely fine with that. I just hope it doesn't mean, costing someone like Armstrong or even Royals, which I'll be honest, Royals hasn't necessarily stood out like he did last year in training camp. And that's a little disappointing. I'm hoping he can make the most of that this year, but there is that potential for him to do well. So maybe we'll see something different, but I just have to throw that possibility out there that maybe there's another reunion for the Chiefs and Juju Smith-Schuster. We'll see. Now, before I get out of here, let me just play this clip here. It would not be a proper training camp recap without Eric Bieniemy's sound. Listen to this. So you hear him there. He's chewing out someone. What he's saying is, hey, you got to finish the play. A lot of times with these receivers, even if they're, virtually tackled, because in some of these drills, it's not live. So the defenders aren't necessarily going as hard as they would in a real game. But the offensive coaches still want the receivers, the running backs, the pass catchers. They still want them to finish and keep running down the field. And I guess Bieniemy was chewing out somebody. Some people think in the comments, they think it's Royals. It's hard to say exactly who it is because I was focused in on Bieniemy in this moment here and just happened to have caught that moment. But yeah, Bieniemy was not happy with somebody. And again, it's unclear who, but hey, this is the accountability you want. You fans were asking for accountability, including me. That is what you're getting. And it's good to have Eric Bieniemy back, and that hopefully will transfer when the games start for real and you start seeing those results in September. All right, that'll do it for this video here on the Chief Zone's YouTube channel. My name is Farzin, and appreciate you all watching this video. If you made it to the end, greatly thank you guys. If you liked it, please give it a like. If you're new and you like this video, you enjoyed this, please make sure you subscribe and let a friend know about the Chief Zone. And also make sure you're following me on all of my other social media channels, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you are, we are very likely on there as well. And make sure you turn on the bell notification. You can be notified when we go live for a podcast. If you prefer the audio version, we're on Apple and Spotify as well. We also live stream on Facebook, Instagram, X. So make sure you're following on all of those platforms. That way you'll know whenever we go live for a podcast. Once again, I'm Farzin. Thank you all for watching. I will talk to you all tomorrow as we recap the second to last day of Chiefs training camp.